The first thing you'll notice when you click into the shared content section is the dashboard. And the dashboard is geared to show you a high-level overview of what's been happening with your content. If you have UGC hooked up as comments on your items, you'll see the most commented items over here. Over here, you'll see the items that you have published versus the total number of items. So you can see on this website, we have about 427 items that are in there, of which 270 have been published. So there's some ongoing work that has not been published yet. It'll show us the recent changes, so what lists and items have been updated that are recent. And then we have our tasks down here. So if there's any open tasks in the system, it'll show us that here. It'll show us any liked items. So there's the ability to have liking and ratings on the items through UGC. And we can also have the most active lists to just kind of give you a chance to look at what's happening on your site. And then if we dig into one of these lists, we can see how it's set up specifically for my content. So I'm going to look at one that's a pretty complex list, and it's called blog posts. So this site is the Agility CMS website, and it actually has a blog within it. And those blog posts are pretty complex, and they have lots of different fields, but it's set up in a way so that it's easy for me to work with. So I'm just going to go to my new button up here. I'm going to click that and create a new blog post. And you can see it's set up to make it easy for me to work with in terms of the labeling. It's got descriptions over here. So on my title field has been set up to say what the page title will be from my post when I set this title. So let's call this my first post. I'm going to tab out of that field and into the URL field. And you can see that this is a special field that has been created for me based on the content architecture, but because we're going to be using the URL to come from here, and it starts off based on the title. So it makes it lowercase, replaces the spaces with dashes to make it URL friendly. And that's a special field. We'll talk more about that later. But as far as an editor is concerned, I don't have to worry about my URL being correct. Moving down through, they've set up a date field here for me, and you can see this is it's going to set up as the published date. As I hover through these things, my help on the right is changing. So I'm going to click on that. The date, I want to set the date actually back to this one. Let's set it to the 17th because this was something for the 17th. I'm going to choose the author, so let's choose me. And then I get the chance to do a whole bunch of other stuff. So comments, I'm going to disable comments on this thing. I'm going to type into the excerpt. So this is the small version of the article. And keep on going down. This is my details field. So this is where the rich text will be for my post. So this is everything. Okay? And you can see that right now I'm in the rich text editor, and this is a very rich editor experience that allows you to do a lot of stuff with your content, and it's going to create HTML in the back end that's going to render to your site. So if you're really good at HTML, you can work with this a lot, with this field specifically, to do whatever you need it to do. And if you're just more of a content editor, you just like to see what you get, you can use these tools to help you do that. So for instance, if I wanted to have a list on here for item 1, 2, 3, I can just type that in, select it, and create either a bulleted list, numbers list. This is a standard editor. Okay, but if you're a little more savvy with the HTML, you can click this guy, and it's going to bring over our HTML editor, which gives you a really rich experience for editing HTML in line right here. And if we want to change something around, if I want to make a change here, tweak the exact HTML that's going to be output there, I can do that, and it'll apply back to the page. If I want to create a link to somewhere else in my site, I can just click the link, and now I have the ability to link to a page in my site, link to a file, or link to an email address. So let's just pick a page in the site we want to link to, and you can see we've got the website tree comes up here. Maybe I want to link to the contact page. I simply click that, and it pulls that in, and now I've created a link. So it's really easy to link through to different things in your site to create different elements. I can also choose from my media and documents section, and I'm going to be talking about the media and documents section in another video, but you can see here I've got the ability to put that in here, and if I know the source of an image on the internet, I could just paste that in. But if I'm not too sure, I can actually come into here and pick one from my lists of things that are already in my media and documents section. So here that is, comes in, and now I've got that great that great experience for choosing and working with images, and all kinds of stuff that I can do through there. So that's just the rich text field, and I could talk a long time about that, and there's all kinds of things that we can work with there. One of the things too that people rarely know is so easy, but when they find out how easy it is, they use it a lot, is the ability to insert media. And so if I want to embed something like a YouTube video, I could paste in that embed code from YouTube that you get when you go to the share dialog within YouTube, paste that in here. It could be a Vimeo, it could be any sort of rich HTML content, drop that in there and it'll work no problem. Clicking on through here, you can see that this content has been set up with tabs. So I've been on the Details tab. Let's go right on through into the Images tab. So this allows me to set up what are the specific images for this post. And I can browse on through here, and you can see on the right, it's telling me this needs to be at least 360 by 225. And I can set up a post image and a listing image, and it's an override. So let's hover down to the listing image override to see what that means. So that tells me that it must be at least 220 by 140, and when it's set, it'll be used as the default listing image for this post when it shows in a list. So that's some pretty complex logic that's being told to me that's custom to my system, and it was really easy for the developer to configure agility to set those things to make my experience better. So let's just upload an image into here. Actually, let's browse from a current image that we already have. Let's find out something here. Maybe we have an article image. I'm just going to pick one kind of at random and drop that in there. Now I have that image. And it's going to tell me, oh look, this file is over 300 kilobytes and may have a significant impact on page performance. So this is hinting at me that, well, this is a really big image that you just picked. Maybe you want to make that a little smaller so that it'll be easier to work with on your site. So we could do that through the image editor, which I'll show you in a different video when we talk about the media section. I now have the ability to choose my alternate text for this to help make my web page more accessible. So I'm going to call this, let's just see, a house and inside. There you go. So whatever makes sense for it is in there. Keeping on going right through here, I'm not going to choose a listing image right now. I'm going to go right through to the categorization and see what we've got here. And again, we've got a whole different editor experience for this field. So this field is allowing me to search for different categories. So this is kind of like a tagging experience for this. So let's choose a few different things. I'm not even sure what the categories are available. So I'm going to click on Edit Content. What that's going to do is bring up the list of all the categories for me to see. Now I can see which ones I want. I could add more from here. You can see that my content item is back here that I was working on, and it brought up this list in a new panel. We call this the item stack. I can just click here to close this, or click back on my content item to get back to my spot in the stack. All right, so let's choose content management as one of the categories. Doesn't really matter. And now I have that on there. We can put in a subcategory title if we want. So this has some pretty specific stuff. It has the ability to be tagged and all kinds of different things to help group my content. Okay, I can choose my related posts that are over here. So this is to help the system search for and find related posts, or we can just make it related based on the blog category. So there's all kinds of logic that's happening in here that can be informed to me by whoever set up the content architecture with this help on the right. And every time I hover over a field or focus into a field, it's going to tell me about that. So I think we've got enough here, and you can see that I've got what I think is the required fields. Those have been indicated with a red star. I'm going to click Save. So that item's been saved now, and you can see down below the URL field is slightly different. It's got a regenerate URL, because it could be I change my title, and I don't want the URL to change automatically after my edit has been saved for the first time, because it could be once this has been published that folks are already looking at that URL. So this blog post has been set up so that I could manually regenerate that URL slug if I wanted to. So let's click that and regenerate it. It's going to tell me, yes, you could create broken links. We recommend you add in a URL redirection from the old URL to the new URL. Do you wish to continue? Sure do. Let's go through there and let's click Save on that guy. So now we've saved the content. And we've basically created a whole host of fields that are on this item that are now going to be saved back in the blog post lists. Now you can see that this list is in the dynamic page lists. So this is a special kind of a list that is meant to be used as pages. So like a blog post will have, usually you'll have a listing of blog posts and you'll have a details page for that post. So let's take a look at some of the other things we can set up on here to help improve that blog post when it's a page. So we've got the SEO settings, so we can tell it whether it's visible on a sitemap, on a menu that's been set up. We can set up the meta keywords and description and additional markup for this. So if there was a specific meta tag we wanted to use, we could do that. So, you know, this is the meta description for this post. So now I've got this set up so that when this article gets shared or when it gets spidered by a search engine, it can have the correct meta information to describe it. We can have specific scripts that will run from the head or the body. We could schedule this post. So I could have this post not go live until, for instance, maybe the 24th of July. And perhaps we want to take this post down because it was a very timely post. We could take that down, you know, a week later. That's really easy to set up. And it could be that we've made changes to this post that we want to check in the history. So you can see the version history of this content item is very easy for me to find. And then clicking right on through to the settings, you can see that we've got some specific stuff that is very useful if you're a developer. Okay, so if we were to publish this, the state would be published. So you can see some of these other posts that we've put in there, and these are some that you might find familiar from our blog, that now the ones that are published have this green status bar at the top, whereas when they're not published, they have a kind of a grayish brown. So what I'm going to do, just to show you what that looks like, I'm going to make a small change into the excerpt of this one. And I'm just going to kind of cheat and put a space in there, take a space away. I'm going to save that. So you can see that now this item is in staging mode, but it still says up here, the item was published a month ago and it's been modified. This item is still live on the website, but I have a change that's in staging that I would have to preview in order to see that change. All right, so let's actually make something a bit bigger of a change so that I could see it. Let's go down into here and let's change this to an exclamation mark and let's click preview. Now preview will automatically save the item and show it to us in the preview pane. So it's brought up the site in staging mode and we can see this is the article I was working on, and down below we can see Essential Services is here. If I jump out of staging mode by clicking this X on these, this is a staging sort of a preview panel we call it, I'm going to close that and I'm going to end the preview session, which will flip me back to live mode, and we can see that the exclamation mark is gone. All right, so jumping back to agility itself, in here we've got this change that we've seen, and if I was to look at the history tab, it would show me that content in the different versions. So let's take a look at the published version of this page, which was back from June 11th. And it's here, and I can see that exclamation mark is gone. So if I had a lot of content that I wanted to restore from this version, I could click on recover this version. Okay, I don't really want to do that right now, but this tells me that this was a published version of this piece of content. And that is standard for all agility content and pages. You can do a lot just by understanding this top bar and the actions that are on it. So we've got our preview. I could delete this item. I can copy it. I can navigate through my list with the next and previous button, and I can do something called adding to a batch, and I can publish this. And there's all kinds of workflow that's with publish, unpublish, and if this list was slightly different, then I could have an approval process that's turned on, and I'll show you that in a minute. Looking through some of the other things that we might want to do on this list, I'm going to jump back to the actual list of items itself. So I have the full list of items right here. What I want to do is delete this item. So I've got the ability now from the list to do all kinds of stuff that is slightly different from what I could do in the item. So I can select any of these items and now use any of these actions to work on it. If I hover over these actions, it'll tell me what they do. So this is the delete action. Obvious, looks like a trash can. This is my copy action. I can add tags to this, and we haven't talked about tags very much. I can move this up and down, or I can switch this whole list into move mode if I need to move something, a long way down that I don't want to do a lot of scrolling for. Because if I want to move this thing, down 100 places, that's a really difficult thing for me to do. But if I just need to move it down one, that's easy to do. And so I just clicked that and it moved it down one. But I'm not really sure this is the right kind of post for my blog, so I'm going to delete it. So let's go to here and delete this post. The content gets deleted and it's removed from the system. Okay, one of the other things that I can do from this is do actions on the entire list, which are the things that are up here. Okay, so these are going to operate on the list as a whole. So I can copy this entire list. I can import things to it from an Excel file. I can also export from it. And I can add this to a batch, and we'll have a whole different video on how to work on batches. And I can publish this entire list. Now this button works in an interesting way. I'm just going to click this because it'll give me a prompt. I click on this. This will publish the entire list, and I can do that here. I'm just going to cancel out of that and select a few of these items kind of at random. Let's just select a few of them. I click publish again. It's going to operate on the ones that I have selected. So that's a slight variation for those top actions up there. But in general, anything that's going to do an operation that is going to publish anything, or if it's going to, by chance delete something, you'll get some kind of confirmation like this, and you got to click it again. So this list has its own specific set of settings that I can control if I have that certain permission on the list. So I can say what columns are on this grid. All right, so that's a pretty easy thing to set up based on the fields that are in my list. I can set the default sort order for this list. I can set up whether workflow is enabled on the list or not. And I have some specific stuff for developers. I can set up alerts for this list on different actions. So if I want, maybe I want to get an alert every time something is published from this list, or maybe anytime something requires approval, it'll give me an alert and create a task for me to operate on that if I was a content approver or publisher. I can set specific security on this list. So if I wanted to give someone access just to this list, I could do that from here.